Hey, this is Roy Hata of Beyond the Box Learning, and I want to talk to you about how do we get to writing, especially when writing can be kind of like a uncomfortable thing to do, right? To one extreme, it might be people just hate to write, right? And why is that? Well, there may be perhaps a lot of things that could come up, a lot of things that we don't want to say necessarily that might get us into trouble. And even more so, there may be that feeling that we would feel stupid, right? And that is the thing that I really want to talk about today. It's because I think everybody has that feeling that they don't want to feel stupid. They don't want to feel embarrassed. It's a bit like speaking, public speaking, right? Getting in front of the class, saying something that might get a laugh when it was unintentional, right? Um, so there are places and times where that's just going to be just so irritating and just cringy, right? We want to avoid the cringe so badly, right? We don't mind when we see other people get into this kind of cringy moment, but well, it's us. It is painful, right? And so writing is a little bit like on the path towards that, and at the same time, writing gets us to these epiphanies, and you'll hear me talk about epiphanies a lot. Um, what we want to talk about is something that is a, a matter of depth, a an idea, a revelation, a realization, an observation, right? All of these things are things that we want to notice. And that's what makes our lives a bit more interesting, a bit more, mm, it will have a lot more depth to it, right? And you know it when you talk to people. Most people will probably talk about in very surfacey kind of ways, the weather and other things like that. But hopefully, it'll get to a point where they're talking about very interesting things that may serve a purpose or may be helpful to other people. And that's kind of like that connection that we want to get. And you can get that out of writing from, figuring out what are your ideas. Um, you don't have to write an essay. You don't have to write a story necessarily, but to jot down what did you realize by the end of the day. And so you can kind of create, whether it's a spreadsheet or it's just like a Google Doc or even a notebook where you can write down your ideas. And in each day, you you kind of at the end of the day write down, well, what was the epiphany that I got, or what was the idea, or the big idea, or something curious that you want to explore. Those are the things that you want to talk about. So I want to encourage you to kind of grab a notebook or even a piece of paper if it helps to work by the computer on Google Docs. Have a document where you're talking about what happened that day. So in that way, we get to a point where it's like, oh, you know, that may sound kind of crazy that day, perhaps, or maybe that was brilliant that day. And then the next day, you might go, oh, that was interesting, or maybe that wasn't such a, interesting thing. But over time, you might see either a pattern or you'll remind yourself, like, wow, actually, each day that I've had in my life had some kind of epiphany. And it has nothing to do with being stupid because you're not necessarily sharing this at this point. You're just kind of gathering ideas, right? So, but that's the first step, right? To get to a place where writing is not necessarily shared, but it's really just shared for yourself and for your own benefit and kind of your own kind of curiosity and discovery. Like, what are you noticing out in the world? these are important thoughts. These are your thoughts. These are what makes you you, actually. And when it comes to if you have to write an essay or if you have to write a story, or maybe you want to write a story or you want to write an essay about this, you have some, at least a couple of ideas to talk about. All right. So that's my tip for today. Write down your epiphanies every day, and don't worry about sharing them. This is about you writing and getting used to just jotting something down and getting an idea down. The idea, the things, and the epiphanies that you discover, those aren't stupid. Those are interesting, right? Those are fun and even perhaps may change the course of your life, right? So jot those down and we'll see you next time.